Swati Goswami ma'am. She is here to interact with you all. I'll take the opportunity to introduce her. She is an independent writer with an educational background in human resource management and psychology. Professionally, she writes marketing content for individual business and ad agencies. Personally, she is passionate about writing poetry on social issues and documenting human stories. She chases visual and performance arts and is an active member of Ahmedabad Civil Society. Swati enjoys gardening, traveling, reading, watching good cinema, and meeting new people, and that's why she is here. So I would request Dr. Sridhar Shah to welcome her with a small gift as a token of appreciation. Welcome, ma'am. And now stage is all yours. So I would request ma'am to please.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Firstly, I would like to clarify that I'm just filling in for someone else here who was supposed to be taking this session but could not be here, which is why you may feel that the talk today is not as structured and a little raw, but please bear with me. So I'm Swati Goswami, and as ma'am introduced, I'm an independent copywriter, content writer, and creative writer by profession. But my education did not revolve around writing. I studied human resource management and psychology. And the reason I'm talking about this again is because without any education in writing, I could do 3 forms of writing. With your professional degrees, you can do a lot more. What do we mean when we talk about media and communication? It is a channel that transmits a message from a sender to a receiver. And that channel is the key here. It opens opportunities for all of you sitting here depending on the skill and the path that you choose to take forward. The role of communication in media is that it helps you critically analyze what you think about the world and how you choose to reflect and analyze and represent it and influence it with the world. I would like to talk about my journey here a little bit so that you can understand how in different phases, in different professions and different jobs, you can actually use communication in media. So after I started MBA, I worked with a destination spa called Ananda in the Himalayas in Uttarakhand. I joined as a HR coordinator. But I soon started assisting the general manager there with corporate communication and guest correspondence. Now, HR is with employees. Corporate communication was with the top management, the VP who sat at the Delhi head office. It was about important internal matters. And guest correspondence was with the guests who came to the hotel. So these are 3 different levels and scale of communication if you look at it in the same job. When you visit hotels and restaurants, you would have seen that you get a feedback round wherein you have to rate various products and services on the basis of your experience. So hotels take this job very seriously. They had a very huge and detailed feedback form, and whether the guest met the expectation, the hotel met the expectation, exceeded expectation, or did not meet expectation, and what were the reasons for it, was really analyzed in a lot of detail, and I was supposed to interact with that guest based on the feedback. So within the same job, these are 3 different communications. Then when I moved to Ahmedabad, I worked with worked with an event management company, which was only based on membership. So they had annual calendars with different kinds of events exclusively for their members. So that job required designing the calendar, interacting with artists who were supposed to be coming and performing for those members, and also finding new members who would be open to taking that membership and subscription. So it was also about recognizing who could be the target. So in that way, it may seem funny, but then I thought doctors could be a great option for those members because they have a lot of cash cash income, and they may want to invest it in places where taxation was not an issue. Then there are also people in jobs which have people moving from outside Ahmedabad, people who do not have any social circle here. For example, officers, IS officers who could be moving from other parts of the city. So you have to identify your targets and then decide how you wish to communicate. Then I started working as an independent writer because I felt I had the skill. I saw a scope for language-based jobs in Ahmedabad, and also because I felt that it was the most natural way of communication that came to me. So there was a Noida-based agency that contacted me based on a very not so popular blog that I used to write back then, and they asked me to write to commission articles for them. So while I was still thinking which new job to take, I actually started writing as a content writer. Now, in content alone, let us also understand the difference between content writing and copywriting. Copy is something that is written specifically for sales purposes. When you write website for a client, it is specifically for that client. Even though there can be other competitors in the same industry, it is going to be specifically about that company trying to get more customers, new customers, or new sales. So content can still not be sales directed. It could be about information also. If you're writing a user manual, it is information, it is not for sales. So this is the difference between sales writing and content writing. Also, blogs which are just educative and not really aimed at marketing a product will also come under content and not sales, will not copy. Creative writing could also be, let's say, you're making a video or a advertisement. Then if you're writing a jingle for it, it will also be a part of marketing, yet creative writing in nature. So that is again three kinds of writing. Then other than my profession as a writer, I also started working with some social activists in Ahmedabad. And you know how activists work. I mean, many of them do not do this for a profession or to make money. So they're always resourceless in some senses. So senior citizens who are doing social events, they always look for younger people who are more tech friendly and can use various mobile apps and tools to sort of communicate about the social campaigns to a larger audience. So even though I never thought I would be designing any media, I actually started making posters using UnconventionalCareer. So again, while I was writing about those things, I was also using another media to express what the campaign was about. And this is when I had no education in either designing or writing. It was just passion-based and interest-based. So why I'm talking to you about this is that communication and media are always very overlapping skills and degrees and professions, which gives you an opportunity to use it for always more than one thing. For example, when you speak of a filmmaker who's just trained in filmmaking and was only thinking of directing a film, he could also turn out to be a screenwriter. He could also be doing the own voiceover for things. So it's always very overlapping, and it is a strength. It may seem confusing to begin with, but when you start analyzing your own skills and talents, it'll actually feel like a strength to you. Now, because this is also about unconventional career opportunities, I will not get into the details of advertising, marketing, and journalism kind of categories, which are the most talked about unconventional categories of communication and media. I would instead like to focus on opportunities that are not often talked about, and they may not even register in your heads like opportunities that can go on in this career path. So it will be great if are any of you carrying notepads and pens with you? Yes. So do one thing, this little exercise. Out of the very quick list that I try to make just 1 hour before coming here, whichever career option looks like interesting to you, or you feel that you have the skill and talent for it, just note it down. And we may not be able to talk about it in detail here, but then at least you'll have the time and memory to maybe search about it later in the day. Okay? So I'd begin by event planning. Now looks like a vast industry again. There can be all sorts of events. There can be cultural events, there can be practice events, there can be social events. and from ideating an event to its execution, everything begins with an idea. So you have to, envision it through communication and a marketing concept and anything concept to be able to even decide later then who's going to be the target for it. So even planning is also an opportunity that may not necessarily count as communication and media career, but it does count. I mean, it can be one of the parts. Now, branding strategists and advertising strategists, I will not get into the details of it. Now, there are also things that when we think of a journalist, we only think of politics, but they can also be sports journalists. They can be fashion journalists. They can be health journalists also. If you have ever been able to think of Doordarshan Times, there was shows specifically talking about agriculture industries or health industries. So this also makes you a TV presenter because you're often going for, and now we're just overloaded with OTT platforms, and there are so many YouTube channels. So if you are an expert in one thing, regardless of whether you've studied media and communication or not, that itself gives you an opportunity to talk about what you've studied. For example, an architect who studied both bachelor's and master's in architecture may not eventually take it up as a career because he may not be wanting to draw, extensive plans for buildings. But he could be interested in going and visiting great buildings or maybe ancient architecture and write about it. So architecture writing, technical writing, health writing, it can be so many things. If you think you're good at cooking, you can start blogs. So anything and everything can be combined with communication and media. It has to be communicated. I mean, even scientists, we think it is a very isolating industry. But once I was actually hired by a scientist to write about his chemical experiment so that he gets citizenship in America. Because research is something that is really valued and it is a national resource to countries. So that actually gives you a very exclusive visa, which is other than regular visas, tourist visa or residency visas that you take. So everything needs communication, and regardless of what you study, if you think you're knowledgeable and an expert in it, you can write about it and present it through paid media. So we spoke about blogging, and copywriting is also something we've discussed. If you want to, in a Q&A section, if you want to discuss copywriting in detail, we can discuss this later. Radio. Gujarat is actually a very interesting state to discuss radio because I think radio jockeys here have immense power. They have exclusive visibility, regardless of the nature of events that are conducted here. Radio jockeys are always called as hosts and presentators. It could be a music event where Ghulam Ali is singing ghazals, or it could be a political event where some politician is coming and giving a speech. Like, regardless of the nature, I mean, radio jockeys are just so valued here, and they come and present things and are often called as influencers also. So again, the overlapping of skill is important. But yeah, as a profession, if you think you're great at oral communication, radio jockeying is also a good platform. And there are also things you learn on the go. So if you're a radio jockey, there's also audio editing that you learn on the job. All the important radio jockeys here who do morning shows, they actually edit their own content on the go. It's a very quick thing, right? It's very simultaneous. There's no time to prepare for it in advance. So there are multiple skills that come with one great skill also. So again, an advantage. News anchor. So, we have to also understand the difference between anchors, presentators, and journalists. Journalists may have the time to, pick up a story, research on it, go in the field, interview people, and then compile that information into a piece that they can choose to present as a video or an article. But an anchor does it on the go. Now, he may not have been the person to research about it himself or herself, but it is probably presenting, information to the mass people based on someone else's research. So we'll also keep that category in mind, whether you're more interested in research or whether you're more interested in just communicating. Columnist, again, what I talked about earlier, that if you think you're good at anything. How many of you read newspapers? So in the editorial page, the different topics that are considered, right? So if farmers are protesting and farmers are being talked about, there would be agricultural experts writing about these things. If you're talking about economics, there will be economists writing about certain things. So again, you're neither a writer nor a journalist, but your expertise makes you a writer as and when you want. Public relations, now that can be a mediator between a client and its customer base or just public in general. They can also be image managers, like celebrities have image managers. If there are scandals and there are controversies, then there are image managers who sort of give responses in exchange of what is being talked about by people. Politicians also have image managers. You might have seen some English series and movies also. Reporters, now journalists do an extensive research. Reporters are people who face the camera and talk about things as and when they're happening. So again, reporters are different, journalists are different, and anchors are different. They're in the field, they're not sitting in a studio, and they could be called at night, like something was wrong, at night. They will be there and talking about things as and when they happen. Graphic design, again, people who think cooperative in designing could be designing graphics and also move that skill to video. Now in the age of social media, we're literally the Instagram generation. There's so much that graphic media can do. Illustration. So you would have seen raw sketches that fashion designers speak of when they talk about inspiration. Everything is first hand drawn and then it turns into the final product. Illustration can also be for cartoons. Like I remember in the very early stage of my career, there was a devoted Jain follower who called me and said that many people from Gujarat move to other countries, right? So when they're already away from their country, it is very difficult that they're getting global education. So how do we keep them rooted to our own culture? So they wanted to get stories of all the Jain gurus, but in a very attractive medium of communication for children. So they chose comics. So I had to actually make characters out of those stories and also assign them characters. And I was also looking for illustrators who could draw sketches of those cartoons. But it was a very interesting way of imparting knowledge, right? Because nobody really reads a lot now other than school books, especially like literature. So comic strips and humor and cartoon illustrations is also an interesting thing. Animation becomes a more advanced version of this. Filmmaking again has many things. It can be camera people, it can be light experts, it can be sound experts, it can be directors, and many more things. Photography has photojournalism, product photography, it takes different techniques. Fashion photography is more with people and less with products. So again, you get to decide whether you want to shoot people more or things more. Wildlife photography is completely different. Magazines are a great platform for people who like to photograph. Travel photography for your personal blogs and fine arts. Then art directors. When we see a movie or a series, how a room looks like in one scene, or how we even imagine shooting a road traffic scene. It is all the job of art directors. Social media managers, I don't think I need to talk about this here. Technical writers, the how-to guides, the user manuals, white papers, reports, the success and failure of an experiment. These are all things that come under technical writers. If you love analyzing innovation, or you love reading and writing about the IT industry, this is the age of AI and machine learning. You might be using AI filters and avatars also. It's quite a trend these days. So if you like doing that, technical writing can be quite an expertise, and they're paid very well. Like they're really in demand. TV presenter, again, for various categories. It can be for politics, it can be for sports, health. Election is a very different ballgame because it is again talking about things as and when they're happening. So they're analyzing the stats as the polls are being counted, and that's when they're presenting. So there are actually famous election campaign presenters who are called each year the election happens. TV producers, again, they get into planning, budgeting, strategizing, managing talent, signing contracts, and getting various artists on board. Corporate communication and guest correspondence. Impact researchers and writers for mergers and acquisitions for sustainable goals. Now, United Nations has these sustainable goals based on which impact writers can get to rate various companies, even big companies like Amazon and Apple. They are actually violating too many things when it comes to either environment or labor rights or the kind of education that the children should be getting, gender, race, equality. There is too many goals. And when, suppose I'm an investor or a capital venturist, if I want to invest in a company, I would actually hire an impact writer or maybe look at the results, collective results of impact writers, and see if I want to invest in a so-and-so company or not. So that is also quite a thing and has a very niche market of its own. But it's great if you like to analyze companies on various goals that the UN has determined. UX UI designer. Now you could be a software engineer with interest in media and how it can be used for various mobile apps and websites to interact with the end user. This is also a part of media studies. Location managers. When a film is being scripted, where it should be shot, the whole sequence of the movie. This is also a profession. So yeah, location hunting. I think if somebody likes to travel and can sort of find the unpopular or not so popular spots in various cities in countries, then location managers are very professional. Post-production. So when we think of film, we mainly think of shooting and scripting, but a lot happens after the film has been shot as well. I mean, even before it goes to editing, there has to be a lot of sound mixing and color editing, which is a very specific profession. There are people who only do this post-production things. So yeah, that is also. You may not be interested in shooting things directly, but editing is a very respected and expert job. Translators and interpreters. So if you go to United Nations meetings or G20 summits, where there are global leaders who speak very specific languages, but everyone has to interact and express their views, right? So there could be a French president speaking in French, but there will be a translator. Embassies have various translators. Each country has various embassies in so many countries. Each embassy will have a translator. And there are also interpreters. So interpreters will also do sign language for you. So, regardless of whether few things they are needed or not, but a person to do that role should be available. It is also a cultural thing. It is also a sensitivity thing that just because someone has experienced something and has the knowledge and resources to talk about something, but is due to some disability not able to express it, there are global forums wherein that knowledge should also be taken into account. NGOs, you could be doing a lot of content communication and media for NGOs. There are also two kinds of writings in communication that social organizations do. One is report writing. So, because they have funds from someone else and they're donors and they're funders. So, how that money is being utilized is done through report writing. Then there are the way in which they cover human stories and to let the stories out for the world to see. That can be another form of media and communication. So these are some of the professions that I enlisted, thinking that they're not very popular professions to talk about when you think of media and communication. I would also like to talk about some trends. like live testing through videos and video on demand and shoppable videos. So when everybody was sitting at home during COVID, there were live festivals, or there was metaverse is something I'm not going to touch about at the moment. But then virtual reality is a thing, and it became much bigger during COVID. So if you were sitting alone at home and you wanted to experience a music festival, that facility was there. There were people doing such things. So again, this is a great extension of media. Partnerships with creators and influencers for any industry or any profession. Real-time messaging platforms like live chats. If you go to, Make My Trip, during COVID, they were short-staffed and did not want to use manpower a lot. So live chats became a big thing because digitally, like websites and businesses should be able to answer what the clients have questions about. Personalized communication. Someone gave me a call a few months back and asked if I could be hired to write certain love letters every month. So there are people who want to do things, but they can't. That doesn't mean they should not be able to. Okay? So there are people who are hired to write love letters, poems, personalized invitations, personalized thank you notes, and yes, it is a profession. I know it sounds funny, but it is a profession. Podcasts, the category is huge, and I'm sure you would be listening to certain categories of podcasts yourself. And again, it becomes an extension of audio services, but begins with writing. So you write, you create, you record, and you publish. Email marketing and short video snippets for YouTube and Instagram. You would already know about this. I'll not give you the details. Communication and media as mediums, professions, and skills can overlap, right? And so, for example, when we look at hotel industry, the general manager is always someone who was a part of certain department. It could be kitchen, like he could be a chef. It could be F&B service. It could be serving people. It could be housekeeping. It could be anything. So when any communication and media skill combines with management, it can actually become a great growth path. You can grow as a professional. So often we think that, especially earlier, there were creative jobs and professions in which we always thought that there is stagnation and the growth is limited. But if you combine it in the right way, it can actually lead to growth also. So who we think of, like Pranay Roy and Radhika Roy, were journalists themselves. Only because they combined their management skills, they became the chief editors of everything. So the growth is not limited, and after certain years of experience in a certain skill yourself, as well as an understanding of the right people and the process of combining an effort, one can reach a managerial and top place in their careers also. Yeah, so do we have any questions? And the options can be much more than this. This was just a very quick list I made before coming here. So it doesn't mean that these are the only professions. There can be many more. You could have another profession in your mind, and if you want to ask something about that. Yeah.
Do they need any specific professional degree in order to pursue any of the
So it depends. Like there are people who pursue specific degrees. For example, they can be people who study mass communication as a bachelor's degree and filmmaking as a master's degree. But it's not impossible to do it without a degree. I mean, I know someone who studied human rights but is now a filmmaker and editor just because he was so passionate about it. And he would just keep watching movies and experiment with editing. So, like, I'm a living example of it. I did not study creative writing or marketing writing, but I do it as a profession.
More than quality over passion.
Correct. And especially for communication and media, because see, communication is something all of us do at some level, right? You give exams, you're writing, you write essays. It may matter that your educational writing is very different from marketing writing. There's a huge difference between the two because in essays, we're asked to explain everything, whereas marketing is the opposite of it. It is very precise, the writing is very crisp. It has now become even more keyword oriented with the rise of digital marketing. But then it just needs a basic understanding. Like if I'm a digital marketing analyst working on Google Ads, I will be using very limited words. But at the same time, on weekends, if I like to write journalistic writings, it is a very different kind of writing. So I have to understand my audience. I have to understand that the mediums are different, and therefore they need different languages. Okay, like if I'm writing for a client who's only making medicines, then I have a specific target. So I'm not writing for everyone and anyone. But my journalistic writing could be read by anyone. It could be an 80-year-old man, it could be a 30-year-old woman, it could be a homemaker, it could be a professional businessman, anyone. So I have to keep those things in mind before deciding how to use a certain medium and the language I should use it. And then of course, with anything digital, there are algorithms and there are tools and there are hashtags. So that you all will very well learn. I mean, people like us in our 30s and 40s will still take some time to learn all this, but you all are young and like way more fast in learning things in technology. So yeah, I don't think degree can be a limitation for anyone if you're skilled and if you're passionate about anything.
Any questions?
Yes.
I have a question. As you said, you have studied human resource psychology, but you have chosen a career which is totally different. So isn't it getting more difficult because we need a basic knowledge about what career you are choosing, right?
Yeah.
So isn't it difficult to shift totally from your course and career? Like it's different totally. So how do you get the basic knowledge about content writing and communications?
See, that's how knowledge and skills vary in some sense. Now, if you can use both of them together at the same time, great. But then it is possible to use one while you're improving or learning the other one. So it's not like it came flawlessly to me, writing. I mean, I used to write poetry and articles earlier also, but I wasn't writing for marketing earlier. But then I started reading. I'd done some courses at home. Even while I was working from home, I was always doing something to learn and upskill. It is very important. Also because, I mean, I'd never thought I would be designing, but because there were clients who asked me to do their entire social media marketing and not just the captions for the social media marketing, I thought, why not? Let me try. And my clients are happy with it. It takes time, but it can happen. And I understand that there can sometimes be some disappointment when you feel that you've devoted many years to studying something, but you're not using it as a profession. But I also think that, see, that's why I spoke of an architect writing about architecture and maybe not planning buildings. Because if he's writing about buildings, there has to be a terminology which can make sense for people who are not from architecture background, like normal people who are just interested in architecture. Whereas also for other architectural firms or magazines that are only writing about architecture, because the balance in the language for beginners and common people versus professionals is very important. So I think that is where you come into play. I mean, you're the one who can strike that balance between professional knowledge and, because the communication is always meant for the masses, right? You could be a scientist, but if you're trying to explain something to someone else, you're not going to use terms that you feel that the other person is not going to understand. So, and knowledge never goes to waste, I feel. And there are always ways. So we speak of moonlighting now, that there are people working in full-time jobs, but are also doing something else part-time. This has become such a thing since COVID. So, like, I actually wanted to be a journalist. I'll be very frank, instead of family, I wanted to do mass comm, but where I was, it wasn't an option. So that is why I started writing a blog. And I think because of that, I have been able to be part of the civil societies and the activist group, through which I can actually understand better. So I'm not just being able to do what I wanted to do, but I'm also learning in the process. And I think if you're continuously learning, then you're definitely going in the right direction, right? So I think there are, and this is also a gig economy period. I mean, there are too many independent workers. So I think it is more of a strength than a problem. By that, I mean, by saying that, I'm definitely not encouraging you to not pursue what you're studying, but I'm just saying it's okay to do this. If you feel that you did not study the right thing and are more interested in something else, then by all means go ahead. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Is name marketing
Name marketing. Yes, they are. I have actually been myself approached, but I said no because I'm not good at it. So, however, it's great that you can do something very well, but one should also be experimenting or trying to learn other skills also on the side. Right? I mean, I could have just stuck to marketing writing, but I also kept doing other things, because especially if you want to be flexible and independent in your because I don't think that you will be hired by a company just to make moves. If they're hiring you and paying you for a full-time job, they will expect you to do more things. So the more you can deliver, the more you will be valued. And see, there are also things, everything is not just about the money, but it is also about how much your time and full-time commitment is being valued from your perspective also. So you should not feel that you're getting less than you deserve just because you're delivering only one product or service. So if you're delivering more, there's a nuisance value that comes to what you're delivering. So I think it's always good to be able to do multiple things and deliver more from what you started along. Yes.
then it's like content राइटिंग में जैसे मैं जॉब के जैसे आगे आए एट अ यंग एज, तो हम बाकी से कैसे टैलेंट से स्टैंड आउट कर सके, और जो एग्जिस्टिंग फॉर एग्जांपल लाइक यू हैव experience in many fields, so how are like we going to have a stand out from how you did that?
See, कंटेंट राइटिंग ना बहुत इंडस्ट्रीज के लिए होती है. मैंने हेल्थ केयर के लिए भी लिखा है, मैंने बिल्डर्स के लिए भी लिखा है. तो इवन इफ यू केम फ्रॉम अनदर एजुकेशन बैकग्राउंड और प्रोफेशन, the understanding will never go to waste. So for example, I think I can better write blogs about a company for HRM because I studied it, and we're all a collection of what we know and what we can deliver. So content writing may, until and unless you want to be specific about writing for a certain industry. अब जैसे मैंने टेक्निकल राइटर्स की बात करी, वो मेनली टेक्नोलॉजी के बारे में ही लिखते हैं. मैंने एक दो बार किया है जब मुझे लगा कि मैं कर सकती हूँ, बट आई एम नॉट अ वेरी टेक savvy person. So I felt that no matter how much I research and study and try to understand, I will invariably be making at least some sentences that I feel that I'm just copying from somewhere. So I did not feel that I'm doing justice to it. So we can be doing many things while still being selective. That I know that pharma industry के लिए I may not want to write because I will not understand the salts and chemicals that they're using. Okay, or maybe a product which is so innovative that nothing like that has been launched in the market so far. So you will not have anything online to read and understand it. So there was somebody in Delhi, I don't know how he even got my number, but he called me and said that we're launching a product that does not exist anywhere, but you will not have the material to read on it. So will you be able to write a user manual? So I was like, I can't do that, I will be doing injustice to my work if I do that. But there are too many things that I may not have studied, but I can understand them and write about them. So it's always also eliminating and selecting. Both the things go simultaneously. But having written for many industries, I still feel that it is a joy to have that kind of a variety in your profession, because I don't get bored. It's not just one thing that I'm continuously writing about. So there is a good mix of industries or projects or clients that I'm writing for, and that is why I feel my job is interesting. And I mean, I have seen some jobs before I actually started, writing as a content writer, and I've been doing this for 7 years. And I think I will continue to do this because I'm not getting bored. I'm enjoying it. Anything else? Yes.
Is there any online platform or services which you think is good for business?
There must be, I'm sure, for mass communication specifically. I can't think of a course, but then they're all sorry.
Media and mass communication, like any specific site or something which you think is good for business?
So I know Micah does a few courses. I'm not sure if it is for beginners or not, but I'm sure it would be. And because it is an online course, the duration is lesser than a full-time course. So you may not be willing to do a 1-year program, but there would be 3 months and 6 months programs. There are also open universities now. So I'm not yet written fiction, but maybe after 5 years I would like to attempt one. So I've taken a online course myself in creative writing and fiction writing. So they let you know how to develop characters. So there is so much variety in writing that if you search online, so I think you could actually search about Micah. There would also be, I think IP University in Delhi also has good courses for communication. I'm not very sure about their online communication courses, but I can actually find that out and maybe take your number and email it to you or whatever. Symbiosis Pune does that. So you can also make a choice that it could be a college offering too many courses with some writing online courses, or it could be colleges which are specifically around communication and media like IB and Micah, and they could be having more things. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you is the most pleasing sounds of all. So, having said that, I would like to thank Swati Goswami ma'am for coming here and sharing her own experience about her career options. And from this session, I just learned one thing, that qualification and passion may not match, but always follow your passion. And once you follow your passion, I'm sure all of you will do really good job in your life. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for being here.